Lieutenant Jake Hartley had survived boot camp, 3 tours in deep space reconnaissance, and a particularly aggressive food poisoning incident from questionable station tacos. What he had not prepared for was sitting through a 4-hour mandatory safety briefing aboard the Galactic Council vessel, Prudent Reasoning. Commander Velk stood at the front of the briefing room, all 7 feet of his gelatinous, translucent body quivering with what Jake had learned to recognize as extreme anxiety. Velk was the ship's safety officer, and he took his job with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for defusing antimatter bombs. Section 94, Subsection 12, Paragraph 8, Velk announced, his voice bubbling through his speech membrane. Universal flora toxicity warnings. Jake stifled a yawn. He'd been the human exchange officer for 6 months now, and these briefings were always the same. Don't touch the glowing things. Don't breathe the purple gas. Don't lick the hull plating, no matter how much it looks like it might taste like butterscotch. This is perhaps the most critical survival rule in the entire manual. Velk continued, pulling up a holographic display. A red plant rotated slowly in the air, its leaves practically screaming danger. Red plants equal death. This has been verified across 47,000 documented worlds. If you see red flora, you retreat immediately. Red means toxic. Red means lethal. Red means your organs will liquefy in approximately 4 to 6 minutes. Question, Jake said, raising his hand. Velk's entire body tensed. Yes, Lieutenant Hartley. What about tomatoes? The briefing room went silent. I do not understand the question, Velk said slowly. Tomatoes, Jake repeated. You know, red, grow on plants, go great on burgers. Also strawberries, red peppers, cherries, cranberries, apples. Well, some apples. Watermelons got red on the inside. Raspberries, pomegranates. Oh, and beets. Can't forget beets. Though honestly, I wish I could. Velk's gelatinous form had stopped quivering. In fact, he'd gone completely still, which Jake had learned was the alien equivalent of a panic attack. You're saying, Velk whispered, that humans consume red plants? I mean, yeah. Constantly. My mom's spaghetti sauce is like 90% red plants. Tomatoes, red peppers. Sometimes she throws in sun-dried tomatoes for extra red plant action. Someone dropped a datapad. The clattering sound echoed through the stunned silence. How are you alive? This came from Ensign Cribble, a small insectoid crew member in the back row. Jake shrugged. Good genetics? Commander Velk made a sound like a balloon, slowly deflating and collapsed into a quivering puddle on the floor. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself standing in the ship's conference room, surrounded by the Prudent Reasoning's senior staff. Commander Velk had been escorted to the medical bay, where he was being treated for what the ship's doctor called existential shock syndrome. Admiral Thornbeak sat at the head of the table, her feathered crest flat against her skull in what Jake had learned was extreme disapproval. She was a Krea, bird-like and perpetually annoyed, with exactly zero tolerance for what she called biological nonsense. Let me understand this correctly, Thornbeak said, her beak clicking with each word. Your species willingly consumes the galaxy's most universally toxic plant category as a regular dietary practice? Well, when you put it like that, it sounds way more dramatic than it is, Jake said. They're just vegetables. And fruits. Mostly fruits, actually. We've been eating them for thousands of years. Impossible, muttered Dr. Physic from across the table. The Zentari xenobiologist was a bundle of tentacles and eye stalks, currently scribbling notes on 3 different datapads simultaneously. The alkaloid compounds alone should cause immediate cellular breakdown, unless his eye stalks swiveled toward Jake with unsettling intensity. Unless humans have evolved a biological immunity to the most lethal toxins in known space. Or, Jake offered, Earth plants are just different. Different, Thornbeak repeated flatly. You expect us to believe that your planet somehow produces non-lethal red flora, contrary to 47,000 worlds of documented evidence? I mean, yeah, we've got a whole agricultural industry built around it. Ketchup alone is a multi-billion-dollar business. What is ketchup? Physic asked, all 7 eye stalks focused on Jake now. Tomato paste, vinegar, sugar. You put it on fries, sometimes burgers, hot dogs. It's red and comes in squeeze bottles. The room went silent again. Jake was starting to recognize this as a pattern. You manufacture condensed red plant extract, Thornbeak said slowly, and store it in pressurized containers for recreational consumption? They're not pressurized. They're just plastic squeeze bottles. Are all humans this suicidal? interrupted Commander Grax, the tactical officer. He was a hulking, rock-like Gorian who Jake had previously thought was unflappable. Or is Lieutenant Hartley an outlier? No. This is pretty standard. My grandma grows red peppers in her backyard. Like, as a hobby. She makes salsa, which is also red. Very red. Sometimes aggressively red, depending on which peppers she uses. Physic was vibrating now, his tentacles moving so fast they blurred. This changes everything. Don't you see? Humans haven't just survived red plant exposure. They've weaponized it. They cultivate it. They've turned their entire food chain into a toxicological proving ground. I really think you're reading too much into "your planet is a death world," Physic breathed, his voice filled with awe. You're apex predators who conquered lethal flora through sheer biological superiority. The implications for human military capability alone. I just wanted a salad, Jake said, to no one in particular. Admiral, Thornbeak stood abruptly. I'm contacting the Galactic Council immediately. Humanity's membership application cannot proceed until we conduct a full investigation of Earth's food supply. If your species has indeed achieved immunity to red plant toxins, the security implications are, it's not immunity, it's just that our plants aren't. This meeting is adjourned. Lieutenant Hartley, you're confined to quarters until further notice. We cannot risk you contaminating the food synthesizers with your Death World dietary expectations. Jake slumped in his chair as the senior staff filed out, each giving him looks ranging from horror to morbid fascination. Through the conference room window, he could see Physic already on a comm call, gesticulating wildly with at least 4 tentacles. This was going to be a long week. 3 days later, Jake stood in the middle of Pike Place Market in Seattle, watching Inspector Glim have what could only be described as a complete mental breakdown in front of a produce stand. This is a public space, Glim said, his voice rising to a pitch that made several tourists turn and stare. The Valorian inspector was tall, gray-skinned, and had the personality of a tax auditor who'd never been hugged. You allow civilians to handle these without protective equipment? Lady, they're just apples, said the produce vendor, a middle-aged woman named Patty, who looked deeply unimpressed by the alien holding a handheld scanner like it was a weapon. Just apples. Glim's scanning device was beeping so frantically it sounded like a smoke alarm. These contain cyanogenic glycosides in the seeds. The flesh shows elevated levels of phenolic compounds. The skin has detectable concentrations of... He looked up at Patty with something approaching betrayal. Why are you smiling? They're Honeycrisps, hon. They're supposed to be sweet. Behind Glim, the rest of the Galactic Council inspection team was faring no better. Dr. Physic had attached himself to Belty-H, a tomato stand, and refused to move, taking readings on every single variety. His eye stalks were practically glowing with excitement. Beefsteak, Roma, cherry, grape, heirloom. He was muttering to himself like a mad scientist. They've categorized them. They've bred them for specific characteristics. This isn't survival, this is mastery. Buddy, you gonna buy something or just fondle the merchandise? Asked the tomato vendor. Commander Velk, who had insisted on joining the inspection despite his doctor's objections, was standing frozen in front of a display of red bell peppers. His gelatinous body had gone completely rigid. Velk? Jake approached carefully. You okay? They're beautiful, Velk whispered. Thanks. I mean, I didn't grow them, but I've spent my entire career teaching people to fear these colors, to run from them. And your species turned them into, he gestured weakly at the pepper display. Into this. Into lunch? Into art. Before Jake could respond, a scream came from deeper in the market. The inspection team sprinted toward the sound well. Jake sprinted. The aliens moved with varying degrees of panic and found Inspector Glim standing in the condiment aisle of a specialty food shop. The inspector was staring at a wall of hot sauce bottles, hundreds of them. Every shade of red imaginable, with labels featuring flames, skulls, and names like Liquid Rage and The Last Mistake You'll Ever Make. What? Glim said very quietly. Is this? Oh, that's Trevor's hot sauce collection, said the shop owner cheerfully. He's got over 300 varieties. The ghost pepper ones are... Ghost pepper? Physic had appeared, shoving past Jake with surprising force. You've named them after death. Well, yeah, because they're spicy. You've created a hierarchy of lethality and market it for recreational consumption? The shop owner blinked. I mean, some people like it mild. Some people like it hot. It's personal preference. Personal preference, Glim repeated. He was swaying slightly. You're telling me that humans have such variable resistance to red plant toxins that you've created an entire spectrum of intensity for entertainment purposes? Sure, I guess you could say it like that. Want to try a sample? We've got a Carolina Reaper one that'll really... No. Glim held up one hand. Absolutely not. This entire establishment is a biohazard. I'm shutting it down immediately pending... You can't shut down Trevor's shop, Jake interrupted. He's got a permit. Also, you don't have jurisdiction here. Then Earth is in violation of Galactic Safety Protocol section. We're not in the Galactic Council yet, remember? That's why you're here inspecting us. Glim's scanner beeped urgently. He looked down at it, then up at the hot sauce wall, then at Jake. His gray skin had gone almost white. Lieutenant Hartley, he said slowly, I need to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay? Have you personally consumed any of these products? Jake shrugged. Yeah, I've got a bottle of sriracha in my apartment. Use it on eggs sometimes. Doctor, Physic made a sound like a tea kettle whistling. On eggs, Glim repeated. You pour concentrated capsaicin extract onto protein-based breakfast foods as a condiment? I mean, when you say it like that. Inspector Glim sat down on the floor, right there in the middle of the hot sauce aisle, and put his head in his hands. I need to file a report, he mumbled. I need to file so many reports. We're going to need a completely new classification system. Death World doesn't even begin to cover this. Jake looked at the shop owner, who was filming the whole thing on her phone. Yeah, Jake said. This is going to end up on the news, isn't it? Already streaming it live, she confirmed. You're up to 50,000 views. Perfect. Just perfect. Jake had seen some questionable decisions during his military career, but volunteering to cook dinner for a group of aliens who thought he was basically handling weapons-grade plutonium probably ranked in the top 3. The Prudent Reasoning's galley had been converted into what looked like a containment facility. Reinforced transparent aluminum separated the cooking area from the observation deck, where the entire inspection team sat wearing what Jake could only describe as disaster preparedness expressions. Doctor, Physic had brought enough monitoring equipment to staff a small hospital. Is the hazmat setup really necessary? Jake asked through the intercom. Absolutely, Inspector Glim said from behind the safety barrier. He'd positioned himself at the back of the observation deck, as far from Jake as physically possible, while still technically observing. Proceed with your demonstration, Lieutenant. We're monitoring your vital signs. At the first indication of distress, we're activating the emergency medical protocols. I'm making tomato soup. That's what concerns us. Jake sighed and started pulling ingredients from the cooling unit. Fresh tomatoes, onions, garlic, basil, heavy cream. The observation deck went completely silent as he placed a large red tomato on the cutting board. Oh my God, he's touching it with bare hands, someone whispered. Dermal absorption rates must be incredibly slow in humans, Physic muttered, recording everything. Fascinating. Jake picked up a knife. Okay, so the first step is, wait. Commander Velk had pressed himself against the barrier. You're going to breach the outer membrane? The toxins will become airborne. That's not how tomatoes work. That's not how any red plant works. And yet here we are. Jake cut the tomato in half. The observation deck collectively flinched. Juice ran onto the cutting board, and Jake could hear Physic's equipment going absolutely haywire with beeping. Toxin dispersal detected, Physic announced. Lieutenant Hartley's respiratory rate unchanged, heart rate steady. No visible signs of cellular degradation. This is remarkable. It's really not, Jake said, dicing the tomato. My grandmother does this every Sunday. She's 73 and runs marathons. He moved through the recipe with practiced ease, sautéing onions and garlic, adding the tomatoes, letting everything simmer. The smell started to fill both the cooking area and, thanks to the ventilation system someone had forgotten to isolate, the observation deck. Admiral Thornbeak's crest feathers stood straight up. What is that odor? That's what food is supposed to smell like, Jake said, stirring the pot. Well, good food anyway. He blended the soup, added cream which caused another round of panic about introducing lipid compounds to the toxic base, and ladled it into a bowl. Then he pulled out the strawberries. No, Glim said. Absolutely not. We've documented enough risk for one day. I'm making strawberry shortcake for dessert. It's a package deal. You're going to consume multiple red plants in a single meal? Yeah, and then tomorrow I'll probably have salsa with my lunch. That's got tomatoes, red peppers, sometimes red onions if I'm feeling fancy. Jake sliced strawberries while the inspection team watched like he was performing open-heart surgery on himself. He assembled a simple shortcake biscuit, strawberries, whipped cream, and placed it next to the bowl of soup. Then he sat down, picked up his spoon, and ate. The first spoonful of tomato soup went down smooth. Warm, rich, perfectly seasoned. Jake had honestly forgotten how much he missed real food after 6 months of synthesized protein paste. "Vital signs?" Glim asked urgently. "All normal," Physic reported, sounding almost disappointed. "No elevated heart rate, no perspiration, no pupil dilation. He's showing indicators of pleasure." "It's really good soup," Jake confirmed, taking another bite. He worked through the entire bowl while the aliens watched in stunned silence. Then he started on the strawberry shortcake. The first bite of fresh strawberry made him close his eyes in appreciation. "He's experiencing a reaction," Velk shouted. "That's just me enjoying dessert." Jake finished the entire meal, every last bite. Then he stood up, stretched, and smiled at the observation deck. "See? Perfectly fine. No organ liquefaction, no cellular degradation. Just a decent dinner." "Impossible," Glim breathed. "The toxicity levels we measured should have what? Made me enjoy my food? Mission accomplished." "Doctor." Physic was reviewing his data, tentacles flying across multiple screens. "I don't understand. Every reading confirms the presence of compounds that should be lethal. And yet, Lieutenant Hartley shows no adverse effects whatsoever. In fact, his endorphin levels increased. He appears to have enjoyed the experience." "Yeah, because food is supposed to be enjoyable. That's kind of the whole point." Admiral Thornbeak leaned forward. "Lieutenant, I need you to answer this honestly. Are you in pain right now? Are you simply trained to hide it? Is this a human cultural thing where you pretend deadly substances aren't killing you? For the last time, I'm fine. This is normal. Every human does this. Children do this. Babies eat mashed strawberries. It's not special." "Babies?" Velk repeated faintly. "You feed this to your offspring." "Yeah, it's got vitamins and stuff. Good for development." The observation deck erupted into chaos. Half the inspection team was arguing about human physiology. The other half was frantically updating their reports, and Inspector Glim had gone back to sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. Jake cleaned his dishes and walked toward the exit. As he passed the barrier, he paused. "Hey, Physic?" The xenobiologist looked up. "Yes? Tomorrow I'm making salsa. You want to document that too?" Physic's eye stalks quivered with what might have been excitement or terror. "Possibly both." "Yes," he said. "Yes, I absolutely." Jake woke up the next morning to discover he'd become the most famous human in the galaxy. And not in a good way. His datapad was flooded with messages. The first one was from Earth's diplomatic corps, marked urgent. The second was from his mother, asking why he hadn't mentioned he was apparently immortal. The third through 3,000th were interview requests, military contract offers, and something called Humanity's Guide to Eating Death, the Lieutenant Hartley story. "Oh no," Jake muttered, scrolling through the chaos. The door chimed. Admiral Thornbeak entered without waiting for permission, which was never a good sign. "Lieutenant, we have a situation. If this is about the soup, the Galactic Council has fast-tracked humanity's membership application." Jake blinked. "That's good news, right? They're not doing it for diplomatic reasons." Thornbeak pulled up a holographic display. "They're doing it because 17 different military coalitions have submitted formal requests to recruit human soldiers. They believe you're biologically resistant to toxins that would kill any other species. They think Earth is a planet of unkillable warriors who eat poison for breakfast. I had cereal for breakfast. With strawberries," Thornbeak said, her crest feathers standing on end. "There's footage. Dr. Physic has been streaming your meals for the past 18 hours. You have 400 million viewers." Jake's blood pressure spiked in a way that probably would have alarmed the monitoring equipment if any of it was still attached to him. "Physic is what?" "He's calling it observing the apex predator in its natural habitat. You're currently the #1 trending topic on the galactic net. There are compilation videos. There are remixes of you cutting tomatoes set to dramatic music." Jake pulled up his datapad and searched his own name. The first result was a video titled, "Human Casually Handles Lethal Flora for 10 Minutes Straight, No Clickbait." It had 600 million views. The second video was worse, much worse. It was titled Earth, the Death World That Conquered Poison, and featured ominous narration over footage of human children eating strawberries at a picnic. "These beings haven't evolved to survive death. the narrator intoned dramatically. They've evolved to laugh in its face. Watch as their youngest offspring consume substances that would liquefy the organs of grown Valorian warriors. Note the complete lack of fear, the casual handling of toxins. This is not survival. This is dominance. That's a 6-year-old's birthday party, Jake said weakly. That's just a normal birthday party. His datapad chimed again. This time it was a message from someone called Supreme Commander Vrak of the Krellian War Fleet. Lieutenant Hartley, the Krellian Empire offers you command of our shock troops division and a salary of 40 million credits. We have studied your species' capabilities. You are wasted on diplomatic missions. Another message appeared immediately after. Jake Hartley, this is Brad from Earth Tourism Board. We need to talk. Now. Every alien travel agency in 3 sectors is booking extreme danger cuisine tours to Earth. We're completely unprepared for this. Please call me back. Please. This is a nightmare, Jake said. It gets worse, Thornbeak continued. Someone leaked your grandmother's salsa recipe. There are now 12 different species trying to reverse engineer it as a potential bioweapon. The Galactic Weapons Convention Committee is having an emergency session. My grandmother's salsa? Apparently, the combination of multiple red plant compounds in a single delivery system is being classified as a potential chemical weapon. Your grandmother may be put on a watch list. Jake's datapad exploded with a new flood of notifications. A production company wanted to make a reality show called Humans Eat Death. A publisher offered him 10 million credits for a book deal. 3 different universities wanted to study his DNA. Someone named Clix the Destroyer challenged him to a toxin consumption duel with his honor and 3 planets on the line. I just wanted to be a cultural liaison, Jake said to the ceiling. I just wanted to help humans and aliens understand each other better. Well, congratulations, Thornbeak said dryly. They understand that humans are terrifying. Mission accomplished. Another chime. This time it was a message from Earth's president. Jake, what the hell did you do? Every restaurant chain on Earth is getting calls about opening locations in alien space. Taco Bell is negotiating a deal with the Andromeda Trade Consortium. We have a waiting list of 2 billion aliens who want to experience Death World cuisine. Call me immediately. Jake looked at Admiral Thornbeak. Can I just go back to being confined to quarters? I'm afraid not. The Council wants you to testify at an emergency session tomorrow. They need to determine if humanity represents a military threat or an unprecedented culinary opportunity. She paused. Possibly both. Great. Perfect. Wonderful. Jake slumped in his chair. What do I even say? The truth, I suppose. Thornbeak's beak clicked in what might have been sympathy. Though given how that's gone so far, I'd recommend preparing for the worst. As she left, Jake's datapad chimed one more time. It was a message from his grandmother. Sweetheart, I saw you on the news. Very proud. Also, some nice alien gentlemen want to buy my salsa recipe for something called defense applications. Should I be concerned? Love you, Nana. Jake put his head in his hands and seriously considered just staying in his quarters forever. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Jake had never seen so many different species in one place, all of them staring at him like he was either a savior or a monster, possibly both. Inspector Glim stood at the central podium, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Honored Council members, after extensive investigation, I must report that humans routinely consume substances classified as lethal by every known safety standard. They cultivate these plants intentionally. They feed them to their children. They have industrialized the production of concentrated toxins and market them as condiments. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Jake could see aliens taking notes, others looking horrified, a few looking impressed. However, Glim continued, and Jake felt a tiny spark of hope. I have come to a conclusion that troubles me deeply. He paused, his gray skin somehow looking even grayer. Our manual might be wrong. The chamber erupted, shouts of disbelief, anger, confusion. Admiral Thornbeak had to activate the sonic dampeners to restore order. Explain yourself, Inspector, demanded Counselor Vren, a massive crystalline being who served as the Council's security chair. Glim pulled up a holographic display. This is footage from a human elementary school cafeteria. The display showed dozens of human children, aged maybe 6 or 7, sitting at lunch tables, laughing, playing, and eating strawberries, just popping them in their mouths like it was nothing, because it was nothing. The chamber went silent. These are juveniles, Glim continued quietly. Unsupervised juveniles, consuming red plants with no protective equipment, no medical staff on standby, No emergency protocols, and they're fine. All of them. Every single one. A small child on the screen dropped a strawberry, picked it up off the floor, and ate it anyway. Several council members gasped. For 47,000 worlds, red plants mean death, Glim said. But Earth is number 47,001. And on Earth, red plants mean lunch. He looked directly at Jake. Lieutenant Hartley isn't special. He isn't a super soldier. He's just a human eating food. Normal, everyday food. Dr. Physic tentatively raised a tentacle. But the toxicity readings are accurate. For our biology, Glim interrupted. Not theirs. We've been using ourselves as the baseline for what's dangerous. We never considered that life might have evolved differently on a world we'd never visited. He paused. We were arrogant, and our arrogance almost cost us a valuable ally. Counselor Vren leaned forward. So humans are not biologically superior warriors? No, Jake said, speaking up for the first time. We're just people who happen to like tomatoes. That's it. That's the whole story. But the potential military applications, there are none. You can't weaponize a salad. Well, I mean, you probably could, but that's not what we're doing. We're just eating food that our planet produces. That's all it's ever been. The council chamber fell into discussion. Jake could hear fragments of arguments, some aliens still convinced humans were hiding secret abilities, others finally accepting the simpler explanation. Finally, Counselor Vren spoke. The Galactic Council accepts humanity's application for membership. However, given the unique nature of Earth's biology, we recommend updating our Universal Safety Manual to reflect that toxicity is species-specific, not universal. Groundbreaking, Jake muttered. Additionally, Vren continued, we recognize that human cuisine represents no military threat and may, in fact, represent a significant cultural and economic opportunity. Within a week, the first human restaurant opened on Council Station Alpha. Within a month, there were 50. Turns out, once aliens realized they wouldn't die from eating Earth food, they couldn't get enough of it. Tomato soup became a delicacy. Strawberry shortcake was an interstellar sensation. Jake's grandmother's salsa recipe became so popular, she had to hire 3 assistants just to keep up with demand. Jake got promoted to Chief Cultural Misconception Officer, a position that hadn't existed until they needed someone to explain why humans did all the weird things they did. His first official duty was responding to a panicked message from a Zentari merchant who discovered humans drink coffee. It's made from beans, the message read. Roasted beans that contain a stimulant compound that would cause cardiac arrest in most species. And humans drink it every morning. Some drink multiple cups. Please advise immediately. Jake stared at his own coffee mug, then at the message, then back at his coffee. Yeah, he said to the empty office. This is going to be my whole career now, isn't it? His datapad chimed. Another message, this time about chocolate. Apparently someone had introduced a valorian to brownies, and now there were questions about why humans casually consumed theobromine, a compound lethal to several species. Jake took a long sip of his coffee and started typing his response. Somewhere on Earth, his grandmother was negotiating a franchise deal for her salsa with a trade consortium from the Andromeda Galaxy. His mother had started a food blog that had 4 billion alien subscribers, and Jake had become the galaxy's reluctant expert on explaining why humans weren't actually trying to kill themselves every time they sat down for a meal. The survival manual had been updated. Section 94, subsection 12. Paragraph 8 now read. Red plants may indicate toxicity. Verify with local biology before panicking. Consult humans if available. They probably eat it. It wasn't exactly what Jake had imagined when he signed up for the exchange program. But as he finished his coffee and pulled up the next concerned message, this one about hot dogs, which apparently looked deeply suspicious to species unfamiliar with processed meat, he had to admit it beat getting shot at. Barely.